like to talk about two things. I'd like to talk about communication and creating emotional intelligence within our children. Somewhere along the line, you've probably heard the age-old adage of you have two ears and one mouth. So that suggests to us that maybe we ought to do more listening proportionally than we do speaking. So let's talk about these two important areas of communication, in particular listening to our children and also teaching them emotional intelligence or emotional adaptability. Because we all have a desire to connect with others, and these are two skills that are very critical. When we do connect with others, we have a greater sense of well-being, we have a greater sense of our place and feeling good. So let's talk about 5 basic principles first of listening. And with these, remember this idea that the person that is listened to at some point will be the person who listens to you when you need to be heard. Now, the first principle of listening is to be very active in that listening. Both parents and children, or teachers and children, need to become active listeners. They need to be able to inquire and gather additional information. They need to be able to reflect well what it is they've heard and also the emotional undercurrents of the conversation or what's being said. The second point is that whether we agree with or not, we need to work at making what the other person is saying and thinking worthwhile. Now, sometimes this is hard with children because they don't always say the most logical things. They don't always say things that we deem important in the grand mess of things. But we need to work at making it seem worthwhile or be worthwhile to us. Third, we need to make sure that what we say and what we do match. We need to teach our children how to read accurately other people's words and other people's actions. Interestingly, evidence suggests that children who come from homes where their parents' words and actions match, the children have a greater sense of confidence. They have a greater sense of peace and calm, a greater sense of stability in their lives. Fourth, we need to fill our communication with humor. We need to be able to focus on the positive, and we need to be able to emphasize the can-do, what the children can actually do, as opposed to focusing on what they can't do, or what they're not doing, or what they're supposed to be doing, which all too often is exactly what we focus on. And 5, we must understand that it is impossible to not communicate, that by whatever we're doing, we are communicating something. And so it behooves us to take an inventory of ourselves and to understand what is it that my behavior, that my words, that my actions are communicating to our children. So those are 5 principles of listening. Now let's couch those in a context of emotional well-being or emotional intelligence. Rather well-known behavioral scientist Daniel Goleman suggests that, for example, girls who fail to distinguish between anxiety and hunger are at greater risk for developing an eating disorder in adolescence. Boys who fail to learn how to control their impulses early on are at greater risk for delinquency and violence in adolescence. And children who fail to learn how to deal with stress and anxiety, the ups and downs of life, maybe even some depression, are at greater risk for abusing substances or engaging in other self-destructive behaviors. So as you can see, it's vital that we help our children understand and become aware of their emotions and what to do with them. Another well-known researcher by the name of John Gottman suggests 5 basic principles in doing this. He says, first of all, recognize that your children are having an emotional experience. He's saying kind of tune in to your children. Notice when they're feeling something. This helps build the relationship as well, because they'll know that you care. Take that opportunity or seize it as an opportunity to build and strengthen that relationship with them, to teach them something about their emotions. Third, and this is probably the most important and the most difficult step, and that's to listen empathetically. Again, this requires our active listening skills. It requires us setting aside judgment about what they're saying and just listening and validating that what they're saying and what they're feeling inside is real. At least it's real to them. And if we can acknowledge that, well, you've probably all had the experience at some point where someone actually listened well to you, and maybe you were having a debate within yourself or fighting within yourself or feeling tense about something. But as someone listened to you and acknowledged what you were saying, it almost kind of released or it dissipated a little bit. And when that happens, we become more able to turn toward finding solutions, and we stop fighting whatever it is. Now, the fourth step is that our children don't have a very good emotional vocabulary. They don't know how to describe what's going on inside of them. So one of our jobs as parents and teachers and people who interact with little people is to teach them words that describe what it is they're feeling, so they're more capable of doing so. They become more willing to do so. Again, modeling that's very important. And the fifth step is then to provide limits, kind of a scaffolding approach to helping them explore options to solving their problems. Again, validating. And again, here's where we can use humor, where we use positivity, where we reward and engage them in their ideas and their behavior. And as we work on our listening skills, we work on listening to them, as we work on teaching them about their emotions and how to deal with their emotions, we'll produce happier children.